Hi there. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Ryan Vanderhei, and I've learned some of my most valuable life lessons from my favorite TV shows and movies. Sure, these works of art entertain us, offer us an escape, and even tap into our emotions. But there's one E that's often overlooked.
And that is educational. If viewed from a different perspective, these stories and their characters can help us learn and develop as human beings. I'm your co host, Joe Parente, and it's our mission with this podcast to share these unique perspectives with you so that you can grow from the show.
The topic of today's discussion: annihilation, and how self destruction is coded into our DNA. As always, there will be spoilers ahead, so please proceed with caution and be sure to leave a like, rating, or review wherever it is that you listen, as it really helps the show. Shall we begin?
We shall.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
So, we're talking about this movie Annihilation, man.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty weird, bizarre ride it takes you on, doesn't it?
Yes.
But there's some really poignant themes that it discusses. One of which is, we're going to be talking about today, self-destruction. And I was thinking about it, thinking about myself, and I had a question that came up. Have you ever struggled, Joe, with any particular self-destructive behaviors?
Nope.
All right.
I know. Very short discussion.
We're off here?
No, the answer is truly so many.
Oh,
Ryan.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So many. I think, although I don't think of these things as being self-destructive until you see results, until you see things happening. I'm not actively thinking, I'm messing myself up right now.
Oh, okay. So you're not...
But then in time, I'll be like, oh, that
It's
was
not
not
a
a
conscious-
wise decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Unless I sit down and I pull a Leaving Las Vegas and I'm going to just, have you ever seen that?
I don't think is that Nicolas Cage?
That was self-destruction
I have not
in its
seen
highest
that.
form.
There's a lot of movies out there that
yes, there
tackle
are.
this issue.
Yes, there are. And I think it's a really interesting approach you're taking, quite frankly, the coded in the DNA.
Yeah.
Like, is this something that humans are just driven to do?
Yeah, that's something that's said in the film. Ventress says that. I believe it's Ventress that says that to Lena. She says, "Well, you're the biologist. Like every cell is coded to self-destruct. So from the cells in our bodies, it's like that's the foundation of life itself, is to self-destruct."
Which is kind of bizarre if you think about the fact that at the same time, every cell wants to live.
Right.
And so we have that drive inside of us too. We will do some very desperate things to cling on to life.
Yeah.
And that's on a cellular level as well. Oh, I'm confused already?
Yeah. 100%. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. Listen, I've had my fair share. I wanted to try and find a singular one that I could talk about here and how I related to this film. When I was in my early to mid-20s, I'd say,
Okay.
I didn't allow myself to have functional romantic relationships. So I would just have casual encounters, sleep with people.
Yeah.
And then I didn't allow myself to grow feelings for them. This came from a lack of self-confidence.
Okay.
I was going through something at the time. I was going through some mental struggles, some anxiety disorders, some panic disorders. And it was out of a place of, like, why would I burden someone with that? Why would I want someone to put them through that? I don't deserve to be with someone.
Glad you got over that.
Right. Very skewed, but completely skewed. But yeah, I didn't see how someone could love or take me seriously because I was going through what I was going through. And so I kept telling myself, why would anyone want to be with someone like this? And so I just engaged in these casual encounters. There was nothing of substance at all. It was this self-destructive behavior of anybody who got close, I immediately pushed them away. Consistently for years.
And to you, that felt like destruction?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because again, it was coming from a place that wasn't productive or positive. It was coming from a lack of something.
Okay. So it was almost like a type of self-punishment
Correct.
in a way.
It was like, you don't deserve
Right.
to have someone that's compassionate and loving and caring. You're not at that place.
And since you are the ultimate arbiter of your own life, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you cut yourself off pretty hard there. I wish I couldn't relate.
It went so far that I was dating someone. I did date someone in college. I didn't want to lose the opportunity I had always wanted to be with this person. So I'm with this person. And I broke up with them because I felt ashamed. I didn't want to hold them back in life. It went that far. So it was a deep-seated, rooted, self-destructive behavior.
You didn't even give her the chance to say, dude, you're holding me back in life.
Right.
You preemptively did it.
Yeah, she didn't even say it. So
maybe because she never even felt it. I don't know.
That's,
I don't know.
That's likely the case, because it was just, kind of all going on up here.
Right.
So
Right.
I can absolutely relate to some of the characters that we're going to talk about here soon, and this theme that we're going to discuss of these self-destruction being coded into literally our DNA.
Right on.
So just for a quick review here, Lena, played by the amazing Natalie Portman, is a professor of biology at Johns Hopkins and an Army veteran. Her husband, played by Oscar Isaac, is currently in the Army and comes home after a long trip, but he's acting strange.
That's putting it mildly.
He's acting a little weird. He's not giving any kind of context to what happened. He's not answering any questions. It's kind of like, what the heck where have you been? What happened? Nothing's coming of it. He says he doesn't feel well. We see the blood in the, which is a great shot, which recalls back to later at the end of the film. But he takes a drink. He's got some blood in it. The ambulance gets pulled over by some unmarked cars. She's drugged. Lena, she wakes up, and she's in this mysterious facility that has been set up outside of what people are calling the Shimmer. Yeah. And the Shimmer is this kind of strange phenomenon coming from this lighthouse on the shore that has created like the only word I could find was like force field.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like a bubble.
Right.
And it's continuing to expand. And they're worried it's going to expand into cities and et cetera, et cetera. So they keep sending these troops of people, doctors, military, inside to try and figure out what's going on. And so far, nobody's come back. Except
exactly
for her husband. So this kind of leads to her volunteering to join a group of scientists and doctors on the next expedition.
Do you think she had a choice?
I think she absolutely had a choice.
Okay.
I think she definitely did. I think guilt is what drove her to make that decision.
And she did say she owed him one.
Exactly. Right.
I was just wondering, I just wondered if she really felt like she had a choice or not. Right. So that's why I asked.
Sure.
Okay.
No, that's a great question to ask.
Okay.
I agree. So I want to talk about a very specific scene here. So Lena is inside with the other doctors and people. There's a paramedic, and Ventress is a psychologist. So there's this group of girls, this group of women.
Yeah, it was all women.
Who all go inside. And they find a boat to get across this river. And Lena is with Shepard. Shepard's behind her. She's in front. And they're paddling a boat across the river. And Cass Shepard says, volunteering for this? Not exactly something you do if your life is in perfect harmony. We're all damaged goods here. And she goes on to mention that Anya is an addict, Josie cuts herself, and then Cass has lost her daughter. We later find out that Ventress had cancer, and we know why Lena is in there. Because she's got this guilt of the infidelity that has caused her marriage to kind of spoil. So this is the scene where we kind of get a our introduction to this self-destructive theme in the film. It's just those simple words that Shepard speaks to her. It's like, nobody comes on this journey if things are going well.
Right.
If
You have too much to live for.
Yeah, if things are all
Right.
hunky-dory at home, you're
Right.
not volunteering for basically a suicide
It
mission.
is basically a suicide mission.
No one's come back except the dude that's
And he's a mess.
currently hemorrhaging
Right.
from the inside.
Right.
So
Right.
why would anyone in a good state of mind, in a good place in their life, volunteer for this kind of thing? And I just thought that was such a really poignant scene that we get to learn a little bit more about what's really going on. And the way they do it, the way that she then points out each of them. Oh, she doesn't drink because she's an addict.
Mm-hmm.
She wears long sleeves to cover the cuts. We know later that Ventress is
Right.
dying of cancer, and
Right.
Lena says in one of the flash forwards, actually, to Benedict Wong, his character, asking her what happened in there. She says, I had my suspicions that she was dying of cancer. Because Ventress, when you first meet her, it's kind of like, what's going on with this woman? She's very
beyond
like,
aloof.
yeah, it was very like gray, dark, cold, nothing coming from this. Nothing of substance was coming. It was just words.
Yeah.
She was just speaking words. There was no emotion at all.
And this was Jennifer Jason Leigh playing this.
Right,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who we know can
bring it.
Can bring some emotion.
Oh, yeah.
So when you saw this scene, what did you feel when you were watching this play out? You told me this is your first time seeing this movie.
Yeah. You mean the scene of
Them paddling across.
paddling
the river.
across? The boat of damaged goods.
Yeah. yeah.
It's interesting to me that you had the DNA. I mean, they did mention that the destructiveness encoded, because that just made me wonder, really, because I just wonder how much of that is learned behavior, and I think that's a difficult thing to differentiate. Then again, if we learn to love something, we have kids, a lot of times you can pass that love on, and you just wonder, is that in the DNA? I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what I thought was that they absolutely took a suicide mission, and it did make me wonder, is it really that bad? Because none of them seemed overtly troubled.
Yeah, it's not like anyone had warning signs and bells going flashing.
Exactly. And so the way I also felt was, well, they're going to be the first ones to get out, having never seen this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the kind of the attitude they had too.
Sure.
I didn't feel like, with the exception of Ventress, excuse me, I didn't think they had the attitude at all of, we are hosed, we are in here, we're going to die. I really felt like they, at the same time they had these issues and were destructive, I felt like they still had that drive of, we're going to get out of here. We're going to be exceptional.
And I think that that's a great point. And I think that they all sort of had this mentality of like, we're going in here to do good.
True. Exactly.
We're going in here to uncover what's happening here, to help society. I mean, some of them had been there for like 9 or 10 months, they said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, I think that it was a noble pursuit. It just happened to be that the people that were going on this pursuit didn't really have a lot to lose. So
it depends, because if somebody can be an addict, but they're having a brilliant life.
Sure.
So I don't know. That's where I was kind of surprised, because I felt like, yes, they might have those conditions and we're all broken to an extent, but I didn't feel like they were like doomed in their personal lives.
Yeah.
And so maybe this could be the last fleeting bit of good that they could do.
Well, I guess we didn't get to see enough backstory on any of them
didn't.
besides Lena.
Yeah.
Like, she's the only that we get a lot of
that's true.
of backstory as to what's going on.
That's true.
And we know her drive because of the guilt, because of wanting to like right her wrongs,
Right.
and wanting to like save his life in order to for them to be even, basically. Like, I owe you one is what
Yep.
she says, right? Like you mentioned before, but we don't see, who knows? We have no idea if any of the other women were leading like completely productive lives
Exactly.
despite their self-destructive behaviors. Like, we don't know that. And when we just through the time that we meet them and we're with them, we're following them on this journey, none of them really exhibit any kind of, until the shimmer starts affecting
Exactly.
them.
And then, oh boy, do they.
And then, oh boy, do they! But certainly when we meet them, at least, like that scene when they're on the like, I guess you want to call it a balcony,
Mm-hmm.
when they first approach Lena.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you come over and have a drink with us?
Right.
They seem like just normal
Yeah,
people
they
at work
did.
doing their job.
They did, but something is occurring to me now as we're talking about this, because they did seem that normal.
Mhm.
But also, Ventress was a psychologist. And I have a feeling, these people were screened and they're looking for a very particular type of person to go on this. And maybe they are looking for someone who has that sublimated or not actuated self-destruction. Well, they've shown that they have self-destruction by cutting and by addiction, what have you. But maybe they were screened to see
Yeah.
if they had a certain level of brokenness.
She picked
Yeah.
specifically these people.
Yeah.
I think there is a scene in the movie that's like that. I didn't choose to discuss that, but I remember a scene between Ventress and between Lena where she's asking about that, about why people were chosen. She comes to Ventress
Yeah.
and asks her about it. And I think that scene was really important too, of like, because she says, well, we're going to get into it.
Right.
I don't want to reveal too
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Let's save some of the juicy stuff for later on. But
Okay.
before we do that, why don't we do a bad guy break
I would
here,
love
huh?
that. Let's do it.
Let's get into a bad guy break. So,
Okay.
in the context of what we're talking about here, somebody who I chose a bad guy who couldn't get a handle on their self-destructive behaviors, and it kind of won out in the end. The behavior won in the end. So,
Yes, it did.
again, as always, 4 hints, year, genre, setting, actor to guess this popular fictional antagonist that has to do with this. So the year that this film came out was 2019. So pretty recent. We're pretty recent here. The genre, crime, drama, thriller. Okay. The setting, 2010s New York City. New York City in the 2010s, I guess would have been a better way to say that. And the actor who plays this character is Mr. Adam Sandler.
God, and he was so good.
You already know what it is.
Yeah, he was so good.
He was
It's like,
so
"That's
incredible.
Adam Sandler?
Yeah,
Wow.
you couldn't believe
Go,
it.
man, go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about Howard Ratner from Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Man, what a movie this was.
Yeah.
The Safdie brothers. Love it. But Howard's sort of this, you feel for him and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
because you made your bed, now you got to lie in it kind
Absolutely.
of deal. But he is kind of a likable guy. He's a...
In a smarmy way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like fun and
Yeah.
charming at times. So there is a degree of feeling some sort of, wanting him to get out of it.
For sure.
But his self-destructive behavior in the movie, if you haven't seen it, is gambling. And so we see himself throughout the film just dig deeper and deeper. And that hole is maybe to the core of the earth by the end of the film. He just can't get out of his own way.
Yeah.
And he's just chasing that one big, he's like,
Yep.
just one more, it's going to
Yeah.
get me out of it, just one more. And we
Yeah.
see that with people who gamble, right? That's what's been portrayed to us in film
Mm-hmm.
and TV. I myself have never been a gambler. I've never known
either.
any gamblers really, but from what I've seen through this film and with others, it's always you're just always chasing that dopamine.
Yeah.
You're always chasing that next hit. And we see what happens to him in the end. He doesn't have a great
No.
outcome there
No.
by the end of the film. So
No.
if left unchecked, that's when these self-destructive behaviors can become really dangerous.
Absolutely true.
Become very no pun intended, destructive.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I
that was a good one for you. You got it. I love that. We're on base, baby.
Yeah, we are.
That was a double.
That was, wasn't it?
You got to bat somebody in next episode.
Right on. Okay.
But let's
aim
get
for it.
back to
Yeah, let's do
let's
that.
get back to Annihilation here. And this is here we go. This is the scene where, to set it up, the Dr. Ventress and Lena are out in the guard shack at night. Lena wakes up, has a conversation, I think, with Shepard, and then says, I'm going to go check on Ventress. She's on guard duty while they're at this facility.
So she's like in a tower outside of where their
Correct.
building is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she goes to check on her, and they have this discussion, and Lena's asking, here it is, why her husband was chosen for the suicide mission. And Ventress comes back and says, you're confusing suicide with self-destruction. Almost none of us commit suicide, and almost all of us self-destruct. And when she mentions how people self-destruct, she mentions destabilizing the happy marriage. So she goes into examples, Ventress does, after she says, we almost all self-destruct. She goes into, we drink ourselves to death, we blah, blah, blah. And she mentions, towards the end, destabilizing the happy marriage. And Lena clocks it.
Yep.
She can tell.
Oh, yeah.
She's triggered.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's instantly that uncomfortability just
Yep.
crawls under her skin
Yep.
because she knows she's right.
Yep.
That and that, I can't imagine what that must have felt like, knowing that this person that you loved, still do love by all means, was married to, they met each other in the army. I mean, what they could have been through, and the bond they could have created, and her infidelity shattered him so much as a human being that he went on a suicide mission.
I think that was arguably one of the best scenes in the movie.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because we can really...
Actually, it was my favorite scene.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that conversation, I thought that was fascinating. It wasn't very long,
No, not at all.
but it was...
Because the bear comes and ruins the moment.
Boy, didn't it? Although, was there a bear?
Who knows?
Only, you know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just such a... Man, just thinking of what Lena must have been feeling in that moment. I can't imagine how that would...
Yeah, that hitting her that, it could have been my actions. Well, probably was her actions that drove her husband.
She certainly comes to that conclusion.
Yep.
And Ventress certainly is not unaware of that as well. Otherwise, she wouldn't have said it.
Well, true. It also put a time frame because we were getting flashbacks in the course of the movie of her having this affair with the other professor at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
Who, by the way, is in The Diplomat, that same actor. And he's awesome.
He's also in Interstellar.
That's right.
He's fantastic.
He is really
I'd love to see
good.
him in like a leading role.
Me too. I mean, just what he does in The Diplomat, I think, is so fantastic. He plays the Home Secretary. He's so good.
Can we pull the name up of this guy? Can we pull the name up of this
I
actor?
can't pronounce his last name, and I don't want to butcher it.
Boy. Great. Okay.
So, but he is so good. What were we saying? Oh yeah, they're showing flashbacks in the movie. Exactly, David
Gyasi. Sorry, David.
I know that's my best. That's my
wonderful actor.
Yes, he is. He is fantastic.
So yeah, we're seeing those flashbacks.
We're seeing the flashbacks, but we don't know, is that in the time that her husband
he was on this mission? Is it prior?
Exactly.
Is it
exactly?
Yeah. We don't learn until later on in the film, when there's a discussion between David's character and Lena on the bed, where he says, "Oh, he's found out." And then that's kind of when we know, it happened prior.
That's right.
Because then you see the last sort of, when they were together for the last time prior to him leaving, and he says, "I got to go now." And he was so cold
Boy, wasn't he?
And he was so
Yeah.
raw.
Yeah.
And that's when we learned kind of that, oh man, she did this prior to him even going on this suicide mission, which then circles back to this scene where
Yep.
Ventress is saying,
Yep.
destabilizing the happy marriage. Also a self-destructive behavior, just like drinking
Very
yourself
much
to
so.
death.
Very much so.
So that was just, yeah, I love that you love that scene because I do too. It's definitely one of my favorites in the film.
Because they also showed several scenes, a flashback of just really happy times for the two of them.
Correct. So it guts you.
It does.
Hurts you. It hurts.
It does. It's yeah.
So
it
I got a little new segment I want to throw at you here.
Okay.
I
Here
want
we
to
go.
I want to do a little did you know.
Okay.
So this did you know fact here, a fun fact about the film. So Annihilation, Oscar Isaac, who plays Kane in the film, plays Lena's husband, filmed this movie and Star Wars The Last Jedi on adjacent studio lots at the same time. And some days he apparently filmed scenes for both films.
That's a man in demand.
Oh my.
That's impressive.
Can you imagine if you were adjacent studio lots, you had your trailers on both, and like, okay, we just wrapped, we just had the martini. Now I'm gonna go over to the other lot, to the Disney lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And lock into
Do you know what the two movies were?
it was
Star Wars, and what's the other one?
Annihilation.
Oh, and that one.
It was
Oh, you meant
Annihilation.
this movie.
This movie Annihilation and Star Wars
My God.
The Last Jedi. He did
Wow.
some days he would do scenes from both. Also wildly separate characters.
Wildly.
Poe Dameron or something he plays
Oh
in,
my God.
in Star Wars.
That's impressive.
And then Kane here too. I mean, two completely opposites apart. So to do that, to be able to like flick that switch.
Yeah. Also, just logistically, how many times are movies shot in locales where that would be possible?
Yeah, I mean, it had to. I mean,
That's amazing.
I'm assuming that was part of the negotiation process. Him
Perhaps.
signing on to do one of these. I don't know which one was. Well, I can assume Star Wars was ahead, of scheduling and things like that. And he was probably signed on to do 3 movies or whatever it was. But when this script came across, he didn't have like a massive part in
No,
this.
he
He wasn't a
didn't.
lead or even a
True.
secondary supporting character.
True.
So he didn't have a ton of screen time, but
Still.
a difficult role
Yeah.
because he had to play an alien,
Yeah. And he did it
And-
quite well.
a human.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a nice, like, fascinating little.
Yeah, it's got my head spinning. Like, what does that
factoid
look like?
Yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
to see a day in the life.
Somebody should have
Oscar
documented
Isaac.
like
Yeah,
that
totally.
process. That would be so cool.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, most actors just try to imagine what it's like to be on one set.
Yeah, he was
Let alone
juggling 2 of them.
Oh my God. It's gluttonous.
Can't imagine.
He's so
yeah.
selfish. My God.
And he's such a damn good actor, man.
Yeah, he is.
Anything I've ever seen him in doesn't matter. Supporting,
Mm-hmm.
put him in the damn background of the shot, and he'd be good in it.
Agreed.
The guy just
Agreed.
has a way. Oscar
Totally
Isaac,
agree.
shout out to you. But anyway, let's get to our final scene here.
Okay.
At the end, when Lena enters the hole in the lighthouse, she has the interaction with the video camera. She watches Kane kill himself, and then she goes down into like the hole where this like crater or whatever, meteor, whatever you want to call it, has gone through. And she finds Ventress, and they have a little bit of a discussion, a little bit of back and forth. And Ventress says, in regards to this like being or substance or the shimmer, whatever it is, I don't know what it wants or if it wants, but it will grow until it encompasses everything. Our bodies and our minds will be fragmented into their smallest parts until not one part remains. Annihilation. And then she gets like, whatever happens. I don't even know how to describe what happens if you
I
haven't
don't know
seen
either.
the movie.
I don't know
It's
either.
bizarre, but
Yeah.
she like, annihilates
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. I've always, when I first watched this film, I was fascinated by it. And I love Alex Garland, writer-director. He did Ex Machina as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did Civil War. I like him a lot as a director.
Oscar Isaac. Ex not gonna.
Also, yes.
Yeah.
That's how they probably.
Probably.
Yeah. They just. He has a way with storytelling that I really, really connect to. And I loved that in this film you have this metaphor of the shimmer that's serving in place of the self-destructive behavior that Lena, this lie that she's tried to keep hush, this infidelity, it just grows and grows and grows until it takes over everything. That's why I came to this scene where she says it's going to encompass everything. If left unchecked, our self-destructive behaviors will do that. If you do not keep them in check, if you do not seek help, if you do not try to overcome it, if you do not, if you don't do these things, it could end up consuming you completely to where you're unrecognizable.
Absolutely true.
And I thought
Absolutely true.
that delivery, that final sort of dialogue that we hear from Ventress of just, it's going to consume everything until annihilation, was so fascinating.
And so it almost makes you think, yeah, that is part of human nature, which would mean that it is embedded in our genes.
Right. It begs the question.
It does.
Is it in our DNA? Is it part of who we are? Is it coded into our DNA like is said in the film?
Well, just, as we're talking about it, one thing that you could look at, or an angle that you could look at this towards grammar. Yeah. English is my only language, and yet I manage to hack it when I can. Just absolutely butcher it. It's actually an opportunity. It's like you can learn a lot about yourself through self-destruction, because it'll uncover, if you dig deep enough, what your motivations are.
Right.
What is driving this?
100%.
And so, it might not just be an all kind of bad thing, if you want to put it in that dichotomy of good or bad.
Correct.
It can be something which shows you that there's something that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And I think that's, excuse me, that is why people do a lot of what they do, because there is something that isn't being addressed.
Correct.
And they don't know how to address it. They don't know how to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll do a lot of other stuff, shall we just say, to keep themselves busy, keep themselves distracted, numbed out, blissed out, whatever it is.
To not have to face what it is that's...
Exactly. I mean, and there are some forms of doing it that are perfectly acceptable. I couldn't do this, but there are people who do bong hits in the morning. They wake up, they hit the alarm, they just
right next to
light
the
it
bed.
up,
Yeah, it's on the
and they'll
nightstand.
function. They'll still go to work, still do their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious about that, of like, what's going on
Beneath the surface there, yeah.
exactly.
And I think it's something you pointed out to before when I had asked you about it. You said you didn't know at the time that it was a self-destructive behavior. So I do have this question when I'm thinking about people like that, or people like I know in my life, functional alcoholics who just come home every day after work.
Yeah.
Hit the hooch until
Yeah.
they go to sleep, and then they get up and go to work, and then it's like they have a fully functional life, but then they come home and they have to engage in this sort of behavior. And it's interesting. I always wonder, are they aware of what they're doing? Or to them, is it normal? To them, this is just my life. This is just how are they consciously aware of the fact that they're engaging in this sort of self-destructive behavior? It's fine to have a drink with dinner, or to have a night out or whatever, but when it's every single day of your life, there's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's fascinating to me. I would love to just like get into their mind for just a second to see what it is.
You'd have to get into their mind at a certain point too, because with alcoholism, there is a turning point where your body craves it. That's even true with I've never done heroin. I don't know this, but your body really craves it. And that's, you're going to crash and burn. It's going to be hard.
A
If you
physical
don't-
dependency.
A physiological dependency.
Yeah.
But, and alcohol, from what I understand, can become that. Your body will actually crave it.
Yeah, 100%.
So even if you're thinking, I need to get off this ride, that ride has you
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
to a degree.
You can
don't
go into
have a choice.
withdrawal.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like any other drug.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's where I'm thinking you'd want to be in their mind at some point before the physiological tipping point
Right.
to see what is behind that.
You're right. Fully agree. Did you get that from this first time you watched the film? This like sort of metaphor that we have, this shimmer that's growing at the same time that we're seeing the unraveling of her infidelity and this thing that she's trying to sort of keep a lid on? Did you feel that? Did that come across to you?
That did.
Okay.
You have brought it out more, though. I really appreciate how you've looked at it. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a really good point.
I was talking to somebody about this. I was talking to my girlfriend about this. That sometimes in films, there's a fine line between being spoon-fed information and not
Right.
getting it.
Right.
Like, as a director, as a writer, you're continuously dancing that line because people don't like to be spoon-fed. They don't want to be told. Like, we go and we see movies like that and we think they're silly and goofy and it comes across over the top, and we oftentimes kind of laugh at films like that. But when there's not enough, you run the risk of people not getting it, of not understanding what you were trying to say,
Totally.
the point you were trying to make.
I told you about the screening I went to last week. I'm not going to name the film, and the director was there doing Q&A, the writers and director, and they were talking about the main character, the antagonist, and what they'd been through, and that was never in the movie. I think I told you that. It's
Yeah,
like,
you didn't understand.
Would have been really nice to know that.
Sure. So
So
again, if you don't, there's just that line, man. You
Yeah.
have to just dance on, and that's what makes it so difficult. Is you have to sort of differentiate between how much do I say and how
Right.
much do I leave out,
Right?
and where is that balance at? And that's a tricky place to be.
And you like the balancing act that was struck here?
I do. I absolutely do. I think there was just enough. It was never outright said, but there was just enough information for me to understand and feel the parallel that was there between the A story and B story, basically. The B story of the relationship between her and her husband, the infidelity, the self-destructive behavior, and the A story, which was, hey, there's this weird shit going on. And
Right.
it's spreading, and
Right.
it's like taking over everything. So now that we've talked about Annihilation, let's give the people some recommendations, shall we? Some things that they can go and watch right now. So if you like the movie Annihilation, here's 5 movies that are streaming right now that you can go watch. The Discovery, 2017 film starring Jason Segel. You can watch that on Netflix right now. No One Will Save You, a 2023 film starring Caitlin Dever. You can watch that on Hulu. Mother, the 2017 film starring Jennifer Lawrence. You can watch that on Paramount Plus. Event Horizon, the 1997 film starring Sam Neill. You can watch that on Amazon Prime. And Lucy, the
Love that one.
2014 film starring Scarlett Johansson. You can watch that on Amazon Prime as well. Love that Lucy movie, man.
Me too.
Very,
That was really good.
very mind-blowing.
It was.
So to recap our discussion here today,
Bring
The
it home,
Shimmer?
Ryan. Bring it home.
bringing it home, The Shimmer was a physical manifestation of what kills us from the inside out. Our addictions, self-doubt, and our mistakes spread inside of us until they consume us completely and we become a shade of who we once were. It changes us, makes us into something completely different. Lena was able to face her fears, confront her mistakes, and forgive herself for what she'd done so that she could shed the cancer that was poisoning her and really move on. We must do the same thing
Agreed.
and confront whatever it is that's poisoning us in our own lives so that we too can move on.
If we choose to.
If we choose to. You don't have to. It's up to you. It's your life. You make the decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. And remember, as always, you're the main character in your own life. So don't be afraid to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Because sometimes the answers that you've been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.